Welcome to Language Swap, everyone, a fun way to learn English. We are so excited to have you join us today.
Hey Sally, I think today's episode might be one of the most useful ones we've ever done.
Why do you say that so confidently?
Because by the end of this conversation, we're going to give listeners 5 clear, evidence-based steps for learning a language faster in 2026, based on actual research, not viral trends.
And we have someone joining us today who's perfect for breaking this down properly.
We do, and let's welcome her. Our guest is a researcher who studies second language acquisition professionally.
Welcome to the show. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you both for having me. My name is Elena. I've spent years researching how people actually acquire second languages, looking specifically at what the data shows.
That distinction already sounds important, honestly, given how much conflicting advice is out there.
It really is the whole problem in a sense. Everyone has an opinion about language learning, but far fewer people have actually looked at the research comparing methods directly.
This episode's level B1 to B2, by the way. And if you've ever felt confused by conflicting advice about how to learn a language, today's exactly for you.
And if you're a little below that level, stay with us anyway. This conversation is worth following closely.
Quick favor before we start. If you're enjoying the podcast, please like this episode and subscribe. It really helps more people find us.
Okay, let's actually get into it. Elena, let's start broad. Is there actually one single best method for learning a language, according to the research?
Honestly, no. That's probably the most important thing to say up front. The research doesn't point to one winning method. It points to several components that show up again and again across different studies.
So instead of one system, it's more like ingredients that need to be combined.
Exactly that, actually. And today I'd like to walk through 5 of those components, specifically ones that have real evidence behind them, not just popularity online.
Let's start with the first one, then. What's the foundation, in your view?
Comprehensible input. This idea has been studied for decades, and it holds up consistently. You acquire language by understanding messages slightly above your current level, not by memorizing isolated grammar rules first.
So understanding meaning comes before producing perfect grammar.
Precisely. The research has been refined over the years, but the core principle remains solid. Massive exposure to understandable content builds the foundation everything else depends on.
What does slightly above your level actually look like in practice, though?
Content, where you understand most of it, but you're still encountering new words and structures in context, so you can guess meaning rather than translating word by word.
I want to ask about the second component now, since I think our listeners are eager for the full list.
The second one is extensive reading specifically. There's solid meta-analytic evidence showing consistent, if moderate, improvements in reading proficiency from sustained reading practice.
Does it matter what you're reading, or is any reading equally effective?
It matters somewhat, yes. Research shows the effect improves further with some structure around it. Discussing what you read, occasional check-ins, some accountability, rather than reading in complete isolation with no reflection at all.
So reading alone helps, but reading plus a little structure helps more.
Exactly that combination. Not overwhelming structure, just enough to keep engagement and comprehension actually happening.
What's the third component, then?
Active output, specifically repeated practice producing the language yourself. Speaking or writing, not just receiving input passively.
This connects to something our previous guest talked about, actually repeating phrases out loud constantly.
It does connect directly, yes. Research on task repetition specifically shows that practicing the same type of speaking or writing task multiple times measurably improves performance over just doing it once.
So repetition isn't just tedious busy work. It's actually doing something measurable.
Exactly that. And this is one of the clearer findings in the field. Honestly, producing language repeatedly, even imperfectly, builds fluency in a way passive listening alone doesn't fully replicate.
I want to ask about something more modern now, actually, since I think this surprises people.
Go ahead, I'm happy to answer that.
What's the fourth component exactly?
Informal digital learning, watching shows, using apps casually, engaging with content in your target language outside any formal classroom setting.
Does that actually show up as effective in real research, or is that more assumption than evidence?
It genuinely does show up. Recent research specifically found a consistent positive association between informal digital engagement and language achievement across different learners, proficiency levels, and even different target languages.
So, watching a show in your target language for fun actually counts as legitimate practice, not just entertainment.
It absolutely counts, yes. The research suggests it works consistently well across very different learner situations, which is honestly one of the more reassuring findings for casual learners specifically.
What's the fifth and final component then?
AI assisted practice specifically, using chatbots or AI tools for conversation practice and feedback. This is newer research, but the early effects are notably strong.
How strong exactly? Since I know you mentioned this had a particularly large effect size.
Recent meta analytic work found a notably large positive effect specifically on speaking and writing skills, largely attributed to real time feedback and reduced anxiety when practicing with a tool instead of a person.
That anxiety piece feels important, actually. A lot of learners freeze up specifically because they're afraid of judgment from another person.
Exactly that barrier, and it's honestly one of the more interesting findings. Removing the social pressure of a human listener seems to let people practice more freely, more often, which then translates into real measurable improvement.
I want to bring these five together now. Actually, since I think listeners are going to want the full picture combined.
That's exactly the right instinct, honestly. None of these five works as well fully isolated from the others. Comprehensible input builds understanding, reading builds vocabulary and structure, active output builds fluency, informal digital exposure builds natural comfort with the language, and AI practice builds low pressure repetition.
So it's genuinely a combination, not a single silver bullet hiding in any one of them.
Precisely that conclusion, and honestly, it's a little less exciting to say than here's the one secret trick, but it's what the actual data consistently supports.
I think that's such an important note, actually, especially after our last episode debunking that whole viral 11-day claim.
It connects directly. Yes, the 11-day claim promises a shortcut. The actual research points to a combination of habits, sustained consistently over real time, which is a much less thrilling story, but a far more honest one.
I want to ask something practical now, actually, since I think our listeners will want to know how to actually use all five together.
Go ahead. I'm happy to get specific.
If someone only has an hour a day, how would you suggest splitting that time across these five components?
Roughly, I'd suggest something like 20 minutes of comprehensible input. Whether that's a show or a podcast at your level, 15 minutes of reading, 15 minutes of active speaking or writing practice, and the remaining time split between informal digital exposure and AI conversation practice, depending on what's available to you.
That's such a concrete, usable breakdown, honestly, compared to just saying practice more.
I think concreteness genuinely matters here. Vague advice like practice every day doesn't tell anyone what to actually do with their limited time.
I think this is honestly one of the most useful conversations we've had on this podcast. Elena, thank you so much for breaking all of this down so clearly.
Thank you both for having me. I think what matters most is that people stop chasing secret methods and start trusting that these five ordinary habits, done consistently, are what the evidence actually supports.
I want to ask something a bit more personal, actually, Elena. Do you practice what you preach with your own language learning?
Honestly, I try to, though I don't always succeed perfectly. I'm currently learning a language myself, and I catch myself skipping the reading piece some weeks, purely out of habit.
That's such a relatable admission, actually, coming from someone who studies this professionally.
I think that's exactly why I find the research so useful, honestly. It's not that I have perfect discipline, it's that I know which habits actually matter most, so when I do have limited time, I know where to spend it.
That's such a practical way to use research, actually, not as a perfect rule book, but as a guide for prioritizing when time is limited.
Exactly that. Nobody does all five components perfectly every single day. The research just tells you which combination over time tends to produce real results.
I want to ask about something else too, actually, since I think people wonder about this constantly. Does age matter for any of these five components? Are they equally effective for someone starting later in life?
That's such an important question, and the honest answer is nuanced. Age does affect certain aspects of language acquisition, particularly some aspects of pronunciation, but it doesn't disqualify these five components from working.
So an older learner isn't doomed, they might just need to lean on certain components a bit differently.
Precisely that adult learners often actually have advantages in areas like structured reading and active output since they can apply existing study skills and life experience to the process.
That's such a hopeful reframe, honestly, for anyone who feels like they started too late.
I think that fear stops so many people before they even begin, and it's genuinely not supported strongly by the research the way people assume it is.
I want to ask one more thing, actually, since I think it connects to something we discussed in a previous episode about invisible progress.
Go ahead. I'm curious what you're thinking.
Does the research say anything about how long it typically takes before someone notices real improvement, combining all five of these components?
It varies quite a bit by language difficulty and time invested, but consistently, learners report a kind of invisible period early on where effort feels disconnected from visible results, followed by a noticeable shift later.
That matches exactly what we've heard from other guests too, actually, that pattern of slow, invisible progress before a real noticeable shift.
It's one of the more consistent patterns across different research areas. Honestly, not just language learning specifically. Meaningful skill development rarely shows up as a straight line.
I think that's such a reassuring thing to hear directly from someone who studies this formally, honestly, not just anecdotally.
I think formal research and personal experience actually agree here more often than people expect. The stories and the data are telling the same version of this, just from different angles.
I want to ask one final thing before we move to the recap, actually. If someone's currently frustrated because they've tried several methods without much success, what would you say to them directly?
I'd say the problem probably isn't a lack of the right method. It's more likely a lack of consistency across all five components together, rather than any single missing trick.
So instead of switching methods again, maybe the answer is combining what they already have more deliberately.
Exactly that. Most people have tried pieces of these five components already, scattered and inconsistent. The shift isn't finding something new, it's connecting what already works into one steady routine.
All right, this time we're doing something a little different for our recap. Instead of a regular word tour, we're going to walk through the five key components as an actual recipe, blending the vocabulary in as we go.
Step 1, comprehensible input. This means exposing yourself to language content you mostly understand, but that still stretches you slightly beyond your current level.
The key word here is comprehensible, understandable enough to follow without constant translation.
You could say, I look for comprehensible input every day, content I understand most of, but not all of.
Step 2, extensive reading, sustained regular reading practice, ideally with a little structure around it.
The key word here is sustained, meaning consistent and ongoing, not just occasional.
You could say, I've built a sustained reading habit, even just 15 minutes daily.
Step 3, active output, repeatedly speaking or writing the language yourself, not just receiving it passively.
The key word here is repeated, doing the same kind of practice more than once, deliberately.
You could say, I repeated the same speaking exercise several times this week to build fluency.
Step 4, informal digital learning, engaging with shows, apps, or content in your target language, casually, outside formal study.
The key word here is informal, relaxed, and unstructured, but still genuinely valuable practice.
You could say my informal digital habits, watching shows casually, actually count as real practice.
Step 5. AI-assisted practice, using conversation tools or chatbots specifically for low-pressure speaking practice and real-time feedback.
The key word here is low pressure, practicing without the anxiety of being judged by another person.
You could say, AI practice feels low pressure, which actually helps me speak more freely.
So the full recipe, blended together, comprehensible input to understand, sustained reading to build vocabulary, repeated active output to build fluency, informal digital habits to build comfort, and low-pressure AI practice to build confidence.
5 components combined consistently. Not a secret trick, just an evidence-based recipe.
And that takes us right into Say It Better.
This is where we take simple sentences and make them sound more natural and more confident.
First sentence, I watch shows in the language sometimes.
Honest, but let's sharpen it.
A stronger way to say it would be informal digital exposure, like watching shows casually, is actually part of my regular practice.
That version names the habit as legitimate practice, not just casual entertainment.
Next sentence, I read a little bit most days.
True, but a little flat.
A better version would be, I've built a sustained reading habit, even if it's just a short amount each day.
That version sounds like an actual habit, not just an occasional activity.
Next sentence, I practice speaking with an app sometimes.
Simple. Let's build on it.
A more natural version would be, AI-assisted practice gives me low-pressure speaking time without the anxiety of a real person judging me.
That version explains exactly why the practice actually helps.
Final sentence, I try to understand things a little above my level.
Good instinct already before the polished version.
A more polished version would be, I focus on comprehensible input, content that stretches me slightly without overwhelming me completely.
That version sounds like an actual strategy, not just a vague intention.
And that's a good place to end Say It Better.
On 5 components, not one secret method.
On consistency over any dramatic shortcut.
Alina, before we let you go, any final thought for our listeners?
Just that these 5 habits are boring compared to some viral trend you see online, that won't actually help you check off even one of these 5 components. But they're genuinely what the evidence supports. Combine them, stay consistent, and trust the process even when it doesn't feel dramatic day to day.
Thank you again, honestly, for joining us and breaking all of this down so clearly.
Thank you both for having me. This was truly a pleasure.
Okay, before we wrap up, here's something to actually do this week.
Pick just one of these 5 components you're currently missing and add 15 minutes of it to your day.
Not all 5 at once, just one, consistently, starting today.
Tell us in the comments, which of these 5 components are you already doing, and which one are you missing completely? If today's episode gave you an actual evidence-based plan instead of another vague promise, share it with someone still searching for a shortcut that doesn't exist.
And Elena, thank you again, honestly, for taking something as complicated as academic research and making it genuinely usable for our listeners.
That's honestly the goal of most applied research, though it doesn't always reach people this directly. I'm grateful for the chance to actually connect it to real daily habits.
I think that's exactly what makes today's episode different from a typical tips video, honestly. Everything we shared traces back to something measurable, not just opinion.
5 ordinary habits, backed by real evidence, combined consistently. That's genuinely the whole secret, if you can even call it that. Thanks so much for listening, everyone.
We'll see you in the next episode.